provided in accordance with Section 3D of Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, commonly known as the Sunshine Law. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Muir,
Here.
Nelson. Here. Heath,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Here.
Randall,
Here.
O'Brien,
Here.
Decker,
Here.
Mooney. Here. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion for open public comment.
Make motion over to public comment.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Dan Wilder, 424 Charlestown Road. This is in regards to ordinance 474/2022. Who is the planning board liaison here?
Judy.
Okay, so just want to say one comment for, so I had given comments twice to the planning board, and none of my comments are in this draft, so it makes me feel like, why bother? Like,
We went through your comments point by point. It was probably a late August meeting, which was recorded, where we went through every single one of your comments, some of which were already incorporated, because the comments we went through, this was the latest draft from 2019. We went through that point by point by point, some of which have been addressed, were addressed, some of which were not able to be addressed, but we did go through it in depth.
okay, well then, at the minimum, do not include invasive species as recommended things. For example, Iris caloriana is an invasive plant. That was one of my comments. That was actually the biggest thing. That a few others, I do agree that things had changed already, so.
Things have been changing that forever.
I agree, but it was just one of,
Yeah, no, we did not ignore you at all.
okay, I
I can give you,
appreciate
I
that.
can look up at the exact date of that meeting, and if you want to listen to the recording of it, when we went through your emails
Okay,
and your comments, you're more than welcome to.
okay, well then I'm gonna say it here and I'll say it in the public hearing. Do not include invasive plants as recommended plants,
Okay,
okay?
yeah,
So, I know that was the one that stuck in my head. I don't remember the other one per se. And then I just have a question. Just so I understand it, section 2, number A, permit required. Tree removal on existing individual lot, permit required. So I noticed that it, added riparian areas and steep slopes in riparian areas that do not exceed 10%. Can you just explain that to me? And I just maybe I'm confused
Section
the
2.
context.
section 2. Right.
Section 2D.
A,
Permit required.
yeah. I mean, I like that steep slopes were added, but I didn't understand not, like, maybe I'm just not thinking correctly. Like, you don't want to remove trees that are on steep slope. And is that what this is saying?
That's the intent.
Yeah, that was
Not
not
exceed.
yes. Yeah, there was also
Do not exceed, so you can remove something that. Okay, okay, I get it.
More than 10%, you shouldn't be able to rescind.
Like, because I'm not used to, it's, okay, got it. So that, I appreciate that got added, so that was good.
Yep.
Okay, very good, thank you.
We'll review the species, but we said one planning board member who we thought was familiar, and then also Highlands reviewed it for us also. They didn't get the list.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember.
So we'll double check, but we thought you had it covered based on the expertise that we requested.
Yeah, I'll tell you this right now, Comeback Farms on West Portal Road, he has calorie pear invading his fruit trees. that, and it doesn't produce pears that you can eat. So, thank you.
Thank you. Other public comment? Motion to close public comment?
Make a motion.
No, there's a hand.
Oh, Mr. Madera?
Hey, I'd like to, as I was the member of the planning board that was tasked with reviewing Ms. Wilder's letter, I'd like to point out that we addressed every single item. I agreed with a couple items. Quite a few items had already been incorporated. Everything as far as species and everything as far as consistency goes was addressed and in prior revisions of this. So you know, Suzanne's point is really wrong. I mean, we spent basically the entire meeting going over every single point that she made, determining whether or not those changes had already been made or made any sense. And we made the changes according to some suggestions that she made and some things that we didn't agree with. So nobody here is a dictator. And so, you know, we reviewed her suggestions in good faith and made changes, some of which in complete agreement with the changes that she suggested. Thank you.
Do you remember the date of that meeting, Jose? I'd like to.
It was the last meeting that we had. It was the last September meeting. We didn't have the,
Okay.
I'm sorry, it was the 1st October. When's Columbus?
No, we haven't had-
Yeah, we didn't have one in October, yes.
Okay, it was in October, we haven't. All right, I'll find out.
Yeah, no, it was the last meeting that we had.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm gonna say thank you for submitting and sharing with us. Good one.
Mostly the invasive species that really is really what, if you could just, I understand some people might not feel that they are, but you can ask any, you know, the Native Plant Society of Hunterdon County.
It was already changed.
We'll review. What was the one?
Thank
we'll
you.
review? Any other public comment? Motion closed.
Motion to close public comment. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
Motion to approve regular session minutes of October 6th, 2022. No executive session was held.
Make a motion to close those minutes. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
aye,
We have a motion to pay all bills in the amount of $44,739.82.
Make a motion to pay the bills in that amount.
Have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Keith,
yes,
Valenti,
Yes.
Nelson,
Yes.
Randolph,
Yes.
Muir.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Report, Mr. Engineer.
Just a few things, and then I know we have a discussion. As far as road jobs, the drainage is complete on the lower section of Iron Bridge Road, section 2. And Carl also took care of the drainage. We had one length of pipe that we were putting in on Person Road down by the bridge. We're replacing what was there and realigning it. So the drainage is done. We also had our pre-construction meeting for Person Road last Friday. We're ready to go. The paving contractor should be out there. I believe, and Carl can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they're supposed to be out there by early November. That's where we are on the schedule.
Will there be a full road closure on Person? I mean, it's not.
Person, it'll probably be, Person will be able to do one lane at a time. So I have one lane open.
Okay.
The challenge on Iron Bridge is the bridge, and getting past that. So that'll be taken care of. The other thing that we had is at Park, the well driller, we're waiting for the well permits to come through. Once we have those, they'll be out there. Put
Are those through the state?
that's through the state DCA grant that we got. And then again, once we have that done, we'll see how much money we have left in the pot. And that's what, then we'll take a look at the pergolas and benches. You know, however we want to proceed with that. That's all I really, other than, you know, the discussion coming up. You know, draft orders.
Yeah, I'll ask you to stay for those. Thank you. I don't see a public safety official in the audience, so we'll table for now. I know old business, so we'll move on to new business, discussion of animal licensing regarding cats. We'd opened this up last year. Do you have a motion to discuss?
Make a motion open for discussion.
All in favor?
I,
So the issue here is to, whether we're going to continue to license cats or not. So we're currently licensed cats and dogs. And, there were some questions about whether we, should continue with cats, so I'll open up for discussion.
Feedback I got last year, the people that showed up for getting the shots for their cats and dogs, they were more than happy with dropping the cat off the list. And really the only reason it didn't get done then was because the stuff had already gone out to the public, people had already paid. So we just continued to practice, knowing that before everything went to print this year, that we had this discussion. So that's the feedback I've gotten last year.
so just in facts, Jen and I talked about some of the numbers. When it comes to what we had with cats versus dog revenue, licensing revenue, and it's basically like a 2/3, 1/3 split, right, Jen? Like almost 9,000 that we got from the dog licensing and 3 something for cat licensing. So I don't know if that sways anybody. But those are just some facts that we've gotten. I don't have anything to add to that, Jen. It's kind of cut and dry, I guess, maybe, in terms of the numbers.
I was just more concerned, so people know, or residents know, we don't make money off of our licensing. We cover the cost essentially of staff, the process. And then a lot of, or a portion of it goes to the state, the rabies clinics, and that's why all the towns do that. So I have 2 concerns. One, even though it's 1/3, it's not a significant drop in work, so I think we'll end up with a negative balance in the account and have trouble paying to keep that staff member in that office operating. So we'll have a service issue for the residents. And 2, as a cat owner, I have 7 cats and 3 dogs, and they're all licensed. The cats generally are out more and have a threat, in my opinion, of carrying the rabies, because they're the ones that get everywhere and have the potential of getting the rabies from somewhere else if they're not vaccinated. So those are my 2 concerns, and I would support keeping it for those 2 reasons.
Yeah. I think I'm kind of in the fence with either side. I can really delay on this. Yeah, I don't really having 2 cats myself, and regular cats, so I'm more concerned about my dogs and everything else. And I think one of the issues that goes on with the cats too was the stray cats, the TNR cats, and everything else. There was somebody that said that if they were on your property, you're responsible to register them as well. If I remember correctly, something about
I
that.
don't think that if they were on your property, I think if you start feeding them and taking care of them, they become worse.
I think in Bethlehem there's cats on a lot of properties.
Yeah, we have a large feral colony.
And my mind, they should get kind of something that's being discussed.
A lot of people-
Don't know this past time around.
So we didn't give up the census, so we don't send somebody out to like knock on the door, and check. So if there's a stray and, we're not, I don't think we're overly intrusive in enforcing any of these. We're just trying to follow state regulation. We have to do it no matter what. We have to do something. So dogs and cats.
You bring up a good point that there's a lot of cats that are, say, they belong to somebody, but they're outdoor around the block and they're back and forth and all over the place. And certainly I look at my yard, and I have no idea who's there, or they just come through. Hey, knock on wood, I don't want to jinx it. Have you had any problems?
I mean,
I haven't heard anything or seen anything, but that doesn't mean that there wasn't a problem or something with cats or.
it probably averages out like once a year, like you'll get a report of a cat entangling with a raccoon, and the report puts out like they're attached and quarantine. But you know, 1 year you might not do anything, another year you might have two, so I'm gonna say, from what I've my experience, it's averaged out to be about like one a year.
I mean, I know it's a small number per say household, but given all the stuff that's going on, the low number of incidents as far as any even complaints about cats. Before we go to print, I'd be willing to say, why not give the residents a break? If we find that there is an issue, and I'm just gonna throw the idea out there, if we find that there is an issue, we revisit before we go back to print again. If that's not a conflict, say, whether it's the ordinances or how that particular category goes. But if it's a stroke of the pen here in a decision, we can see what the public does, see how it works out. Because we have a relatively low risk. I'm going for it. Here's the thought.
So my, I think what Paul brought up, the financial is that, do we cut BJ's hours, do we cut back, you know, her salary, you know, how, I don't know, you know, and that's just for my.
When did we start? We just started it, I think, a few years ago.
Cats are nice.
Since I've been cat hearing license.
Yeah, you're 20,
They are this year, last year.
22 years in license, yeah.
Never had a cat about 3 years ago, so.
So they've always been, and they're, I think they're less expensive than dogs, they're not the same rate, I don't believe.
I mean, I've had both.
Or they,
I find my
To
cats,
license them,
Yeah.
yes, if
I was saying,
yeah,
whether they're neutered versus not neutered.
yeah, that's.
that's the difference.
Yeah, there's a,
Mhm.
and whatever month we pay.
Did you Keith, do you have any input?
Yeah, I got a quick question. Now, if they're not licensed, are they still eligible for vaccine? Or if they have to be licensed to get that free vaccination?
No, no, I don't.
They need to be vaccinated in order to
You
get.
get the license, yeah, it's like, yeah, so you get a license, you have to have proof of vaccination, but you don't need to. Like I have a neighbor, commercial property, and she collects the cats and gets them rabies and neutered and puts them back out there. They're not, you know, they're just
There's no proof.
purely, yeah, there's no proof of anything. I mean, she's just doing hopefully good for the community that they're vaccinated since they're strays.
Right, but they're not licensed, correct?
They're not licensed, no. You can, if you have a stray cat, you can bring it in. I think Mr. Jimenez used to have a cat that was sitting on the porch. He said at one meeting, and he was just gonna get it, you know, the rabies vaccine. It wasn't his. You have a motion open to the public?
I'll make a motion for the public.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Right,
So if I recall, there were some towns in the neighboring areas, maybe it was Clinton or Union, I don't remember, that only does dogs, doesn't do cats. You're concerned that the cats could, you know, bring it in. What if you just reach out to the other towns around here that don't do cats and see if they've had a problem? Because I haven't heard of an issue with cats. I mean, but I'm not saying there aren't, I just haven't heard it, but I would think other towns that don't have cats licensed, you know, to see have there been any ramifications to not having cats. For myself personally, my cats are outdoor cats and it is impossible to catch them to get the rabies, but I might do it anyway, just because, you know, this way I don't have to worry, but
What is our print deadline? Do we have time to then, or we're pushing up? Tonight?
I think we're still okay with the timing, but it's gotta be.
So November 3rd would be our next meeting, so like, we know then, can we still get them out on time?
That's a question for BJ.
Okay.
She's here. Tell me.
Sure, we're using the county to print these now, yeah.
You want me to ask?
See if we can stress to the 3rd, then we'll get this additional information
Okay.
and see if there's any answer.
We have a comment, Lou's raising his
Got
hand.
Lou?
Yeah, I have a compromise solution to this problem. How about indoor cats only do not need licensing, and cats that go indoors and outdoors do need licensing?
I don't object to it, like we say all the time, like any other ordinance, we have a tough time, everybody's gonna say their cats are indoor. But it's on an honor system, but.
I mean, the whole system is an honor system as it stands right now anyway, so.
Yeah.
Just a thought. By the way, we did look into this and found that there hadn't been a cat to human rabies transfer in 18 years in the United States.
Yeah, it's not one of those rabies, reports come out, it's usually animal to animal.
Yeah.
Another comment,
Raise your hand.
we have another comment.
Mr. Maderos?
So I agree with the mayor and also with our administrator slash CFO. That you've got to first think about how you're going to make up the hole in your budget. In your animal control budget, because you have somebody who's making more money than you're taking in on the dog licenses alone. So either you're going to have to raise dog license fees, or you're going to have to keep the cat license fees, or you're going to have to cut her salary, which more likely would push her to quit now. That's just my point. Thank you.
Yeah, so only surrounding towns. The other thing, some of the other towns, so Clinton Township only does dogs. The town of Clinton does cats and dogs. But you know, it also aids. It was interesting. Clinton Township says why license my pet? One of the other reasons is that it helps in tracking them too, because they all have a tag number. So while we're charging a fee, we're not making additional money, but we're still technically could be providing service, because if somebody sees the animal and you put the license tag on them, they can get the information here and know whose animal it is. So it's helpful to the restaurant resident.
That's, I don't put the tags on.
What's up?
They do not wear them.
Cassandra's iPhone? Are the hand is up for Cassandra? Says Cassandra's iPhone?
Hello, sorry, I didn't know you were talking to me.
No.
As a cat owner, both my cats are outdoor cats. We just moved to the area. Well, I just moved to the area. My boyfriend's lived here for a while. They've always licensed the cats. We've had them for a couple years. And I've never looked into it. I'm just trying to understand. It's specifically just for like the rabies portion, right? Like to keep track of that, or like I have no problem paying the fee. It's a very small fee. It's for the year. You know, I just don't see a reason to get rid of it. I think it's a great idea if it is for the rabies, and it's not like it's gonna, you know, break my bank or anything. So, and our dog as well. So I mean, if our cats ever did get rabies, God forbid, and you know they got in a fight with my dog, that would be horrible. So I mean, but like you were saying, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, but my cats don't wear the tags. So I mean, that's another thing where it's like, well, does it really help if, you know, you do find the cat and it's, you don't know whose it is and what the tag number is or anything like that?
Okay. I mean, it looks like it's, you know, a mix of surrounding towns, whether this, so the dog is a requirement, but the towns that license their dogs are making enough money off of the dogs, they're twice our fees, so they're using the dog license to pay for their staff to be able to
And
process.
Lebanon Borough charges $25.
Yeah, ours is the lowest, I think, maybe the lowest, without looking at all of it, it's probably the lowest in the county. And so that's the other option then, is do we have to raise the fee on the dogs, which we don't want to do.
That wouldn't be good.
Yeah. I think the most equitable is probably to leave it alone.
We need to close public comment.
Yeah, there a motion to close public comment?
Motion to close public comment.
Second. That's the.
And we share Zoom.
Favor?
Aye.
What I'll just say is, I'll make a motion that we leave the cat dog licensing as is for 2023.
I'll second it.
On favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'll abstain.
Okay, abstain.
Put it halfway.
Steve, what's your vote?
What was everybody else's? You got 3-1?
We're 3 in favor, 1 abstention.
It's a tough call. Either way, you get it. So, yeah, I mean, are we really in trouble if we don't get extra money from the cat licensing? We definitely, I mean, is there numbers to prove that we're gonna have to either possibly raise the dog licensing?
Want to keep our dog licensing or our animal licensing staff member where they are. We either would need to reduce hours or salary with just the dog licensing at the same price. And Mr. Nelson said it's really not fair then to raise the fees for the dogs by eliminating the cats. It's
Yeah,
not.
okay, no, you answered it. Let's try it for one more year. We can reissue this, relook at this next year again?
No, definitely. I'm open to looking at it each year and seeing what's best.
Right, you know, I want to keep the money where it is, and obviously BJ needs a job and we don't want to lower her salary. So, let's try it for another year, I say.
Thank you. The next discussion item, release to buy an excavator. Is there a motion to discuss?
Motion to discuss?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Carl, do you wanna? You shared with me, but in your packets of the paperwork, Carl, if you wanna share.
Say that again,
We're gonna discuss the lease to purchase, the mini excavator.
oh, okay.
Unless you want me to, so, but I can preface it and then Carl can add in detail. So Carl, you've been renting this for how many months now?
Right now it's 7 going on, well, next month will be 8.
Okay, so Carl's been renting this, there's a option to take those rental payments, put them towards the purchase price at 0% financing. With the 0%, we have to make a commitment by the end of the year to get the 0%. So I think the intent was to lease it for November and then enter into the contract for December, and then those, or at least a portion of those payments would be applied. And so we'll be committing to finance $62,260.
No. It's cheaper than that.
Okay.
That was the 6 months.
Okay, so you'll have 2 more months on that, so it'll be like 50.
3 more months.
Okay,
If we do it through December,
so it'll be like 53,000.
56.
So, and then I think the intent, or at least what I'd like to see then, is then, so we're using this as a stopgap to take advantage of the 0%, and then we approve the temporary budget. We'll approve the first probably 3 payments, and then I'm hoping that we find in the budget just to buy out the rest. Will probably be 48,000 or something like that, and we just pay for the machine in full in 2023.
So what's the, for this piece of equipment, what's the useful life expectancy?
Garland, if you can share, I know, I was gonna say the 2 things that if you could share, one, because we've never had this before, permanently, is the usefulness of it you've shared, and then I guess, yes, the life expectancy of it.
The usefulness is like 100% better than the backhoe. It's a lot smaller. You know, with the backhoe with the smaller roads, the backhoe takes up the whole road, where we would have to move if vehicles tried to get through. And it worked out great on Iron Bridge, you know, where cars could still get through. And we didn't have to move, and we could keep on digging. And the expectancy, I would say, probably about 15 to 20 years if you take care of it.
I did go down and saw Carl using it on Iron Bridge. He wouldn't let me use it, but I'll still, be supportive.
So buying it, avoiding borrowing money, we're paying just the price that we negotiated, better out over the terms, but we're only paying the principal. We're gonna own the thing and get way more years of use out of it for that price, plus whatever it takes to maintain it, versus if we rent it all the time, rental fees keep going up, whatever the insurance is that goes with those rentals. Ultimately, buying it becomes cost effective to the residents and the DPW versus always renting it, hoping we can get a machine that works, and those escalating costs over time, where it would be the equivalent of buying 2 machines or 3 machines over that same 10 or 20 years.
Most likely.
Okay. sounds like buying it makes sense.
And the intent is to pay for it.
And,
Right.
and how much of the rental fees are getting rolled back into the price that's also helped us? So we rented it, but we're not actually losing it. It's only the rent.
Yeah,
80% of it, that's what I thought it was 80,
Right, so it's like we've test driven this thing and decided to buy it, and the test drive fee is kind of getting rolled.
Now, is there any money left from funds that we received in regards to buying trucks with that we can put towards this too?
I just, guys, is there funds left from ARPA or trucks or other?
There might be, but I'm not sure. How much?
Or how about taking some of the funds we got back from IDA? That most of the EPW were got 39,000 back from them. And I don't know how that calculates into.
So. When you like receive it, we put it back into the budget.
Right.
So it will go back into Carl's budget. So, I mean, that's an option, you know, when we get, or just to see how Carl's doing. I mean, it should
There's an ability to maybe take at least even
half of
put
it,
it aside. So it doesn't get touched.
We'll see.
Let's say, hey, we're to do this.
right,
We'll see in November, because November you can make a transfer, so we'll see where there's any accounts with surplus.
right.
And know that that's gonna go into our surplus for next year potentially, and then look at next year's budget. And like I said, my intent, hopefully, I don't think we disagree, is to then just pay that balance off
Or,
once the budget's approved, so by May, we'll.
right, or do a down payment and then have a smaller. monthly
Right.
payment.
Maybe that's 0% or something.
Paul, this piece of equipment would factor into Carl and you guys handling any of the requirements that come out of this future flood ordinance. And if there's any grants or any money that's appropriated for these particular ordinances meet these state requirements, there may be ways for hard assets like a vehicle or a piece of equipment that are grantable as well.
It's possible, and I would
And
add,
just throwing ideas on, put it on the radar.
and obviously, like Carl said, it's more useful than the backhoe, like, maybe it'll extend the life of our backhoe by a year or two, because we're using this rather than bringing that out somewhere.
And it's easier for them to get the smaller roads.
Yeah, no, it was great on Iron Bridge.
Exactly.
So you guys, it was great on Iron Bridge.
I got a comment real quick. I'm 100% behind this. I'm retired, so I drive around quite a bit and I go see Carl at least once or twice a week. And these guys are using the shit out of this thing. I mean, it's very, very important that we have this piece of machinery. So I'm 100% behind this. Whatever you guys got to do, make the finances work. But definitely, without a doubt, this is a great idea, a great piece of machinery.
Thank you for that. So, motion to close discussion,
Make the motion to close discussion.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Good public comment?
Sure.
Oh, we got a couple.
Sure, or so, public comment,
Motion to close.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Peter Berger, 134 Blackbrook Road. I was just wondering, how many hours a week is this machine used and what size is it?
Carl, can you share?
It's a KX57. And in the last 6 months, we've been using it probably about between 20 to 32 hours a week. That's because we've been busy on Iron Bridge.
How much are you gonna use it when Iron Bridge is done?
We took it over to Bressans Road and did that drainage, for like one day. But we're gonna be using it here and there, wherever we can.
It only seems better to rent or lease a machine of any size due to the maintenance and any other problems you run into. Plus, it gets a little worn out, you give it back. Why own it and maintain it? Just saying. And if you go on the PowerCo website, they give a dozen reasons why not to own a piece of equipment. That how much better it is to rent it. And if you guys wanna look at that, it's just a local rental place that has nice new equipment to rent. I mean, that's a lot of money, a lot of tax money to spend for it to sit in the yard between the big jobs. Thank
But if
you.
if you would rent it for, say, 5 years at their rental rate, I could buy 2 of them.
You give it back when you're not using it.
Thank you.
I have a question is, you purchased that
Can you
in here,
say your name and address?
Darwin Matarazzo, 102 Boston Road. You buy a mini excavator, so that means you gotta have a truck and trailer moving around all the time. So that's another piece of equipment you gotta babysit. I agree with this gentleman, you're better off renting. System, and the maintenance package with these things, it's like the side loader tractor that sits out there and never gets moved. You bought the side loader, the boom tractor, it never gets used. And how many more roads we don't do with that mini excavator? I agree with Carl, it's great on Iron Bridge, tight road and all that, I agree on that. But how many more roads we got to do with town? I think it's a waste of money, to tell you the truth.
Thank you.
400 we spent so far, Jen, just the. What has been out of pocket so far.
6 month rental, 11,000.
11,700.
Yeah, 11,760.
Just for 6 months.
We've had it for 2 more. And 80, like I said, 80% of that could go towards paying for it. We already have, we do have the truck and trailer already, we have, we take every
That
right.
11,000 was the 80%.
Right, so it's $2,450 a month.
What would it cost you to hire a contractor by the day with his own machine to work with the guys? Less headaches?
Do we have time to table this and next week just to consider some of these inputs that are pretty good?
Yeah, I mean, I trust Carl as our DPW supervisor. He had asked about this a while ago. I didn't bring it up because again, he wanted to make sure, but now we want to lock in 0%, so.
Well, that's why I
It's a
asked.
discussion item.
We have that window to just evaluate some of these other suggestions and have better numbers to either substantiate our position to buy it. Or factor in that, hey, because we've got the public comment, we can actually look and say. In a better than just the best guess.
I mean, I would have to do some research, but, if there's like saying, oh, it's better to rent these machines than buy them, then it's gotta be in the company's better interest to rent them.
Yeah, I would agree.
There's gotta be a catch there if they're actually suggesting that we rent instead of buying machines. And if we give it, this is just I would have, again, if we want to table this, that's fine, I can do some research myself also. If we give it back and then re-rent it, who's to say we're gonna get the same deals? You know, change the terms,
Prices can always go up.
yeah.
Charlie?
Have you looked into, like I just mentioned, hiring a contractor with his own machine to work with it in town?
Yeah, there's a lot of complications with that as municipality, so it has some benefits as far as maintenance, but
What's the complications? I don't understand what the complications.
it's up to our supervisor, but I think a lot of it is just our own flexibility and our ability to get the work done. There's a lot of efficiencies that we can have by having our own machine, our own operator. We're also a union shop, so eventually we bring in an operator that's not a union. The union's gonna have some issues with that. So there's a complication that this helps solve also.
What's that machine weigh, Carl?
You're on mute.
I believe it's 18 or 19,000.
Okay.
Any other public comment?
And what's the selling price?
When we go to purchase it, 56,000.
After the rental or before?
After the rental.
Before the rental price.
Well, 73,620. And then taking the 80% of what we've already paid. Will come off of per month.
But you said, wait, how much? Carl,
I'm sorry, what's that?
what did it weigh?
I think 18 to 19,000.
So that, you have a 9-ton trailer or 10-ton trailer?
Yes,
Joe Blow, public comment?
Any public comment?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Not discounting the input that was given, but I'll put out there, make a motion to enter the contract in December, the 0% financing with the intent to purchase the machine in fall of 2023.
I'll second.
Roll call votes, so finance purchase.
Keith,
Yes.
Lindsay,
Yes.
Nelson? Yes. Randolph?
I'm gonna vote no, I'd like to, I've gotten the extra information.
Muir?
Yes. Thank you. Next discussion is the flood damage protection ordinance. Got a motion to discuss?
Make motion open discussion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, this is an ordinance that Mr. Lindsay, Ms. Nelson and I met twice on, reviewed. It's a model ordinance from DEP. Another one, as I mentioned at previous meetings, that they're having the municipalities adopt. It is driven mostly by FEMA and flood insurance and so forth as an update, because the current ordinance, which was also a model DEP ordinance, is now outdated. So there's updates, but there's also some options that the township can implement. And what I did was the ordinance, it has the track changes on it, and we've already accepted the items that are township specific as far as codification, referring to the township and so forth. But there are, the options are highlighted in blue. And if you go to the third page, the first options that are highlighted have to do with violations. And the model ordinance has a fine of not more than $1,250, but the township would have the option of increasing that to $2,000. Our discussion was that the township doesn't typically like making money off of violations. So the general consensus was to just keep it at the minimum for money. Because that's a per day violation. Yeah, we were always looking for compliance rather than correct. And then on the fifth page, there's the option for a higher standard. Basically, the ordinance refers to the FEMA firm mapping as far as the 100-year, 500-year flood elevations, or if there are state delineated flood maps. But there's also an option to use available data that Bethlehem Township may have. Bethlehem Township does not have any additional flood studies that have been done. So that while it's an option, it's not really an option for the township because we don't have anything, and I don't think the township wants to go through the expense of developing anything. So that one would also be dropped. On the sixth page, there is an option to go with a higher standard, and that is rather than a 100-year floodplain elevation, referring to a 500-year floodplain elevation. It's slightly higher. It's not, it's not 5 times higher in elevation. You may have a difference of elevation, maybe a foot here and there, as far as what the floodplain is. We also discussed, properties that may be in flood areas, and have we had any issues with not just, the storms where, road drainage may not be able to handle something, but we're talking about the streams and so forth. it doesn't seem like in those cases Bethlehem's really had too many flooded out homes or properties. And this also pertains to any new development. We're in the preservation area primarily, so it's not, you know, we're not seeing a lot of new development other than maybe additions, sheds, garages, you know, things like that. Upping it to the 500-year is easy. I mean, it's already delineated in the floodplain maps, so that's something that could be considered.
Would that be a recommendation?
I mean, that was one of the things that we had discussed, and I think we thought that going with the higher one would be
Yeah.
better. You're also, in most of your streams are category 1 streams, so they have a 300-foot buffer to them. So chances are any new development is going to be beyond that 300 feet, and your floodplain is going to be within that 300 feet. You may have some isolated areas that are otherwise, but given the general topography in Bethlehem, you don't have a lot of, you know, flat plain areas next to streams that are developed. And then there's also some additional options, F and G, which are additional standards. Again, I don't know if anything, it references Army Corps of Engineer. I don't know if they have any mapping available or any other standards in Bethlehem Township, and also any other information that the township may have that goes back to that mapping. So I would recommend that F and G, we don't utilize those options. And, you know, Judy and Paul, you know, let me know when to be a good turn. On the next page, on item 7, it talks about adding additional freeboard above the floodplain elevations. Right now, it's a foot above, so if you're putting in a home, your first floor needs to be at least a foot above the floodplain elevation. It gives you the option of putting in a higher standard in feet. It doesn't tell you, it doesn't give you a range. It doesn't say 2 feet, 3 feet. I'm not a big fan of putting in numbers that we don't have any science or studies behind them. You know, it's kind of like doing speed limit studies. You want to do a speed limit study in order to set the speed limit. If you put in 3 feet and somebody came back and said, well, how did you come up with 3 feet? We don't have anything to back it up. So my recommendation here is we just keep it at the model ordinance of 1 foot. As it is, we've already raised it to the 500 year. So, and then as we go through on item number, on page number 11, this has to do with repetitive loss. For example, if you have a flooded condition that occurs, over the past 10 years, you've been flooded out 3 times. Once your repetitive loss, how do you implement that and so forth? Again, I think the recommendation was that we just keep the model ordinance and we don't put any additional time constraints or anything like that. The way that the repetitive loss kind of works is almost like if you have more than 50%, say you had 20% one year, 20% another year, 20%, a third time within a 10-year period, you've exceeded 50%. So now you have to elevate the entire structure or whatever. And it just seems that might be a little onerous on a resident. And again, given that we haven't really had any buildings that have flooded out, it's not really going to carry anything. So we would recommend not going for either of that option. Just so you know, in here it talks about, overall it talks about temporary things like RVs and so forth, and keeping them out of floodplain and temporary structures and so forth. Again, on page 18, it talks about the violations. Again, we would recommend just putting in the $450 fee. And on page 26, again, it's talked about repetitive definition. And whether or not we want to include that, we would have to include that if we adopted the other sections talking about repetitive loss. And the consensus from the subcommittee was, again, not to include that. And then on page 27, definition of substantial damage. Right now, the definition is equal to or exceeding 50% of the market rate of the building or improvement. Before you would have to replace or elevate the entire building. The option is that you can reduce that to some other percentage. And again, I don't know how you determine what that percentage is, and it seems to me that that just puts more of a, it would probably hurt the homeowner even more. You know, you said 30%, then they have to elevate after they have 30% damage rather than just repair. And the same thing with substantial improvement. Again, that's, you know, over a certain number of years, cumulative cost, and so forth. And again, the recommendation is to just keep the model ordinance as it is. And I think this might be the last one on page 32 is enclosures. And again, this is for new construction. So again, you're subject to the islands and the riparian buffers to your category 1 streams. Basically, this is if you wanted to add enclosures are prohibited for new construction or substantial improvements, or for new construction or substantial improvements. Enclosures shall be less than 295 square feet in size. And as I said, it's going to be subject to DEP regulations, and everything else. So I don't know if the committee wants to do, you know, an additional restriction. And those were the items that basically will need the committee to provide input. If you're agreeable with everything I just presented, the next step would be taking this ordinance DEP and FEMA wants to review it before it gets introduced. So we'll clean this up, get it to DEP and FEMA for them to review. Last time I did this was in Middlesex County back in the spring. It took FEMA about 6 weeks to get back to us. Hopefully they've streamlined things since then. That was the first round. Because as I mentioned before, this needs to be adopted by February 15th.
So they haven't changed that at all.
They have not changed that at all. They haven't extended it. The only thing I've gotten is a verbal from their information section that if we need more time to work with this. So that obviously February 15th date, you'd have to introduce a reorg. It would have to be verted the reorg for the planning board and then adopted at the first meeting in February.
Yeah, for residents in attendance, you can't introduce an ordinance and have it cross over into the new year. And begin the review, there's not enough time to get it done for this year, so it's a little unusual to introduce a reorg, but to meet the deadline, which the state seemed to disregard the municipal regulations. So February 15th to stop. So I would, you know, are there any other questions or comments about one thing? All three of you for working on this and going through it.
I mean, yeah, we wanted to minimize the pains to the residents and, you know, most of this ordinance is basically not within the committee's control. We really just went over what is, there's just a few things that,
Pieces that were
Yeah.
there and just decided to keep it.
Yeah.
At the minimum caption pieces. Rather than making it more restrictive.
Yeah, the only thing that would be more restrictive is going to the 500 year instead of the 100 year.
So I don't know, if one of you is the subcommittee would like to make a motion that we send to FEMA for review as presented tonight.
I'll make a motion to send to FEMA for review, as amended tonight.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Again, thank you for that work.
Yep.
Motion closed. Discussion.
Motion to close discussion.
Second.
On favor?
Aye.
Actually, I put something down other than ARPL is the, so tonight also we have an introduction of ordinance 473/2022, amending the parking ordinance. This is just the introduction. We'll have a public hearing November 17th. Again, I have a motion to introduce.
Make that motion.
Second.
On favor? Aye.
Aye.
The motion to forward the ordinance to the planning board for master plan consistency determination.
Make that motion.
Second.
On favor?
Aye.
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 Again, the public hearing will be November 17th. Introduction of ordinance 474/2022, the tree ordinance. Motion to introduce.
Make that motion introduced.
Second.
On favor?
Aye.
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 Again, the public hearing for that is November 17th, 2022. I have a motion to forward to the ordinance, the planning board with master plan consistency determination.
Make that motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. We have some applause for the introduction of the tree ordinance. I think it's been many, many years. And I will say, I will just add, there's it's probably gonna end up being a requirement for tier B to A. So we want to stay a little bit ahead of the game, anyway, so.
I'd like to thank everybody for their input. There's been a lot of people who worked on that over the years. Both residents and
Yeah,
both committees, both boards.
so a lot of planning board members, a lot of committee members.
Yeah.
Report of zoning official, there's no report attached this evening. Report of animal control officer, this email that we printed out in your packets. And the report of township attorney.
Not much to report, just we are meeting with Judge O'Neill with all the parties in the ADS environmental on Wednesday. Hunterdon County, which will be just open to the attorneys, and hopefully we'll be able to give you more comprehensive input or decision really, where we're gonna go with this, moving forward with the judge. So we expect a remand, back to the Lakers.
Anything else? I reported health and safety coordinator, Mr. Lindsay.
Just a couple things, we actually had scheduled a meeting with, Mr. Gamble, County and Township Insurance. We getting changed, we realized November 8th is an election day, I apologize. It didn't pop up on my calendar that day, so, once again, the date, we'll set that up to go inspection of the, park and town hall. And possibly we'll at the DPW office. Other than that, Tropical Storm Ida, all three projects have been closed out at the state. We received a total of $39,454 from them. That was the Heritage Park repairs, sinkhole repairs. That was debris cleanup, getting rid of all the debris after the storm. And that was the roadway repairs and certain roadways that were washed out along the edges. Great job again by Carl, that magic book he had everything documented there, the hours of work and everything really helped out. In making sure we got this money, so thank you very much, Carl.
Yes, thank you again, Carl. Thank you, Paul, for working with him, Judy, and you both for Carl. Report of finance coordinator, Ms. Nelson.
One good piece of news to report tonight, and that is we are shooting for 99% tax collection rate for Q3.
Excellent.
That's pretty much all on that front.
Report of land use coordinator, Ms. Nelson.
I think we talked a lot about that board tonight. Basically, all of the ordinances going back to land use board, move the processes forward on the various ordinances going through. We didn't have a meeting last week, so we haven't had a meeting in a while because of the holiday. So we'll pick back up Monday night.
Thank you. Report of governing body members, Mr. Lindsay.
Nothing.
Mr. Randolph.
Only the court is doing pretty well. They're meeting all the requirements right now. I talked to them today. I'll meet with them next week just to catch up on everything that's relevant to the end of the year.
Thank you. Mr. Keefe.
I have a couple of things. See, the snack shack. When I was down there for community day, there's a lot of stuff in there that definitely needs to be thrown out. I don't know who to talk to about that. Paul, can you call somebody who's in the rec?
Carl always goes above and beyond, and he is throwing everything out.
Nice. Carl, you didn't tell me.
You didn't ask.
Yeah, we were talking about it on Community Day. We went through and looked at all the mouse crap,
Yeah.
okay? And I want to call an executive session real quick. Give me my choices, what I got to put it under.
Litigation, contract, personnel.
Yeah, contract.
Okay.
That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Nelson?
I don't know if you wanted to discuss this in your update, Mr. Mayor, about our meetings last week with, the zoning officer and the tax collector, tax assessor.
We can do it, we can do it now, we'll do it together.
Okay, so I'll just start it and you can jump in. We had a good meeting with both officials last Tuesday night, regarding some questions from the residents. And before I get into that, and before I forget, Mr. Judice? See there? Oh, there he goes. Is there any way we can get our, can you hear me? He's on mute. I just want to get our zoning map up on the website. Is there a way we can do that? Because I've noticed there's always been some confusion, especially along 173. What's the highway commercial? Like, what are the zones in this town? I think you're on mute.
Hit the wrong button. Sorry about that. Yeah, no problem at all. Just get me the best version that you got and we'll find a way to get it up.
Yeah, just put under the resources tab, I guess, in the new site.
Sure.
Well, I can get you a PDF of that.
Oh, good.
Excellent.
Great.
Very good.
Because I don't have
I
it.
send it out to all the scanning and then.
So it just wasn't working.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, so, again, we just had some good updates, with both of them. And, so to answer, I guess, the one question that we had regarding the notification of clear cutting, that's a little difficult to put into any type of process because there really is no process in place. And this is where I would need you to kind of back me up. From what I understand, what happens is there's like a one-time notification where they present a plan.
So the zoning, I know it was stated that the zoning officer gets notification. The zoning officer does not get notification and has no state or legal responsibility to get notification. So it would be difficult or not able to enforce that. So the only notification we get is through the tax assessor. Typically Woodlands, I know you have a Woodlands management plan, but typically they'll get a 10-year plan and then each year an update of what they're doing with the section. So the assessor is the only one that gets that update.
And it's only the first notification in a 10-year period. They're not required to notify, within that 10-year time frame. So there's really just no good way to put any type of also consistency, because you want to like notify people on one property, then all of a sudden you're not notifying on another. You can get into some inconsistencies in how we're treating these types of events going on in town.
So we say for right now, we're not going to do it, but we're not going to forget about it. But we don't have a mechanism to do it. There's no pre-existing mechanism, so.
No.
Yeah.
It's it's unfortunate that that's the way, those are the requirements that we have right now. Other than that, I don't have any other updates right now.
I spoke to Mr. Mullen. We had a couple properties too that we had some concerns about. So one is, we shared was the ADS property that's in litigation, but they did have some violations as is. I know you've spoken to the zoning officer. I think right now there's a question of tractor trailers being parked there, but the majority of them have been removed. But the ones that are there are still within the MR zone, so they're not residential, and there's some additional vehicles that are showing up in mountain residential. So again, we're going to give another chance to move those out of mountain residential, and the trucks we're going to ask for repair receipts for. and then they'll be within compliance. If not, there is a court date set in November, so kind of giving the last option of clean it up or come to court. We had, I know Mr. Marazzi was here, we revisited the property on 173. So far, the only thing that we can find on that property, because construction is allowed in that zone, which is what brought up to the zoning map. So they're allowed to have construction in that building, they're allowed to have an office in that building. The only question is that there's no bathroom facilities in the building. So the town has no ability to enforce bathrooms because we don't have a continuing certificate of occupancy. So without a CCO, there's no action that a zoning officer can take. We've contacted the construction office, and the zoning officer following up. But construction also says that we have no CCO, there's no action we can take. So we're going to go back to the Board of Health. I want the Board of Health wants, and they tried to pass it off to OSHA. It's really up to the Board of Health to decide. So that's where we're gonna. So that's where we're going. We opened a public comment.
Okay.
But we can follow up on that. So what other
There's the property across from there as well.
yeah, so that is also construction. State construction is going to go out there, and our animal control officer has some more control over that because of the dogs there. You can only have, so this is for all residents. If you have an open piece of property, the dog can only, you can't have any animals there or domestic animals between midnight and 8 a.m. without a primary principal residency being on that property. So our animal control officer probably has more pull to that with that property than zoning does.
Well, there's the one structure.
But it's not a compliant structure, so that's why state construction code going out there. And then the statement was that it was a camp, and we're not accepting that, so construction code was going out there, do whatever action they take. And then the small landscape facility that we've all been talking about for a while, they have submitted a site plan. I don't think it's meeting any requirements, so it'll probably go back, but there's steps in place to try to, there's no action we can take as long as they're making the attempt to come in with a site plan. And that covers all of the current issues. And we did ask, we worked with Mike, we had a lot of discussions, we haven't really sat down with him. So it was a good conversation about enforcement and getting answers.
And we're getting a little while, but we're gonna follow up too.
Yeah.
We're gonna sit down again and follow up.
And same with the assessor, I share as elected officials, we always talk about being a committee while have equal votes here. I don't spend much time with the assessor at all because I was, been elected for 12 years now, and you go through those courses. They tell you to stay away from the assessor because the elected official, you may have undue influence on the assessment of any property that your friend, your own, whatever it is. And so I rarely spend time with the assessor. We just talk to the assessor about the woodlands and about some of the farmland assessments. And then unfortunately, I will share a potential revaluation that we may be required to do in Bethlehem Township. We'll start that process, or at least the discussion of it next year, because we are now out of compliance and the county has come to us. They did come to us at the beginning of the year. I kept pushing it away as much as I could, but there are certain, it's a requirement looking at legal, because pre-pandemic, we were solidly at 95 to 96% of retail values is really what the assessments are, which is very good. And most recently, we were at 84% of retail. And once you get below 86, the county comes knocking on your door and says you have to reeval. And we haven't seen the newest numbers, which are probably even lower than that.
Yes.
Total probably 80%, which is going to cause us some problems and some of our reporting to the state even. So we don't want to do it, but we'll do that. And the goal of it, my goal at least, we'll have to talk about it, is net neutral is what I'd like to see. So while your assessment may go up, then we adjust the tax rate just to hurt any of the residents with the value of your property. Our intent is not to have more money here than we need.
And we've had no tax appeals for this year, no county tax appeals, no state tax appeals. Last year was a particularly difficult year to appeal against because the comps were incredibly higher than general. So, but with a tax collection rate of 99% and no tax appeals, it's a really good sign.
And we haven't had a reevaluation since 2003, according to the assessor. I thought it was 2006, but it was that's when it probably hit after we did the assessment. The things we learned. and share. Anything else?
No, okay.
Report of township administrator.
Just a couple of things. I gave everyone a packet of the 3 quotes for the copy machines. I was waiting, hoping to get a couple more and get those. Best practices is due to the state on November 10th, so that will be at the next meeting. I'll have that done for the governing body to sort of approve that, I guess, by resolution. I'm not sure. Chris, is that resolution? Just the vote. Just the vote, okay, for the best practices. And then I don't know, for Paul Lindsay, there was the fuel spill, so I left a message with the insurance company.
Get the contact from the county.
I did, yes, I reached, and I have the insurance information for the company, so I left a message, I haven't heard back from them.
Right, we get a copy of the police report? Did you request it?
No,
We should get a copy of that, so if they did one, we'll see.
okay,
Yeah, if you give the county contact, it was Tim with Barracks.
Yeah,
okay,
contact the individual that gave the number 4, he should get a copy of the police report, any email I sent you with, or like that. What was it? Yeah, everything was still on here.
but Carl gave me the hours and, you know, for our expenses to be reimbursed.
Greg Vaccarino.
Yes, I
Easy
have,
contact.
yep.
I think most have seen the updates on the website and social media, but we had a truck with a damaged diesel fuel cell that drove through Bethlehem, Union, Franklin, Clinton. I don't know how big that fuel tank actually was, but I know I was out in a commercial vehicle and saw the rainbow, and it was funny because I read Carl's text because I was sitting in the closed road and stopped and talked to the trooper, and he was confused because I was like, hey, I'm the mayor over in Bethlehem in a commercial truck and trailer with one of my guys. And I was like, I had my DPW supervisor with me on the phone. And I think we had the same issue in Bethlehem, which you hadn't realized that it had gone that far. They just thought it was localized to Franklin at that point. So this truck went through multiple towns, and the county, I will thank the county because I know, I want to thank Carl first for his quick, action. We closed Iron Bridge, for those who was raining that day. Diesel on water is pretty much like ice. So I know in Franklin where I was, there were cars already up on the embankments, as if it were ice. Now the county was putting down some cinders, but I saw the county sweeper, since we haven't bought our own yet, thankfully. And Carl called down to the county, and so they came out and helped out as well. And pulling a lot of at least the drainages at the intersections, the ones along the road. I think it was probably a little less, but you could definitely see where it was pulling, where there were stop signs, and they had to sit there, so the county helped out with that, so I don't thank them for that.
The county was out there, so it's early and early and that was out there as well. That's the situation.
Anything else?
Okay.
And when do you want us to have a discussion on copy machines next meeting?
If possible,
Okay.
I mean, I'm thinking for a budget next year,
Okay.
but I don't wanna
I think it's
be
still
good with the
a
copy
machine, so-
machines, so I don't wanna.
No, last time you said that'd be a horrible.
Yeah, I know.
And I did, I saw your email, with the insurance requirements, his questionnaires for the insurance company. I told you to review them, so I have a couple comments, I'll email them back to you tonight.
Oh, yes, yes.
There are only a couple, everything else is fine, there are a couple questions or changes. Anything else? Report of mayor, we kind of covered the majority of the things that we did, just some quick updates on things. I attended the last solid waste advisory committee meeting for the year. The county, they only hold for a year now. We had a visitor who was actually proposing a Class B tree and brush recycling facility in Kingwood. So that was interesting, but most likely won't make it back to SWAC this year, so that'll be for next year. I attended the liaison to the Muscatine Watershed River Code Council. So they had a meeting Tuesday night, which I attended. They were talking about accessibility and equity within accessing the river. So such as different language markers and different things to encourage non-English speakers to enjoy the river and understand where the access points were and fishing and things. So it was interesting. The Hunter County Economic Development and Tourism Department held their annual economic development summit. I was one of the speakers talking about home-based businesses. So we already have our ordinance, but the 7822 coalition created a model ordinance. We can look at it. I think our ordinance is pretty sufficient. It was one of the newer ones. But I just wanted to share from the conference was because we always have concerns. So again, compliment the county, and I think given our efforts, we're looking for economic development efforts that are respectful for Hunterdon County. So I think everything that we've been doing so far, even, obviously we're fighting against large scale warehouses and things that would be impactful to who we are as Hunterdon, but yet finding ways like the home-based business to keep our character. So in 2019, our population decline finally stopped. Obviously the pandemic even helped it accelerate that. So we had a nice bounce back in population in Hunterdon. Vacancies in buildings are also down much lower than they were since 2017. And jobs have actually increased. I think there were 3,500 jobs added, and a good portion of them in the manufacturing sector. So along with that, I also attended the groundbreaking for the Hunterdon County Polytech, which they're putting a new facility at the North Hunterdon High School. I've been a mentor in the auto tech program and also the commercial arts design program over there. So kind of a personal touch for me. But I think it's a great avenue too for the future for the economy and economic development here in Hunterdon County to teach trades within our county. So, and it'll be the first, I believe, it's the first in the state will offer trades training from freshman year on. And right now, Hunterdon County buses to different facilities that the students will be able to stay right on the North Campus and do the academics that are required, plus the trade training that they need while they're there. So it's a pretty unique opportunity. The first class should start fall of 2024. And then the final thing, which is more tangential to us, but interesting, I'd written a letter of recommendation for the Muscatine County Watershed Association to apply to North Jersey Transportation Authority for their village upgrade. I think we had applied last year for some trail improvements in our park, but they were actually awarded the grant, and we'll be looking at. So when you look at Bethlehem Township, and Hunterdon County ends halfway through the bridge there in the little village of Asbury, but they'll be looking at creating more of a village atmosphere, upgrading the sidewalks, some walkability so that there's greater access for fishing access there. The part that impacts us is as we look at that potential open space acquisition for the little island there, it'll make it easier and have less cost for us to integrate that into open space, allow people fishing access there. And then further up into Warren County, it'll just kind of change that whole dynamic of how people walk and access a little bit. So it was pretty exciting because I usually fund more urban projects. So it was nice to see that recognition in Hunterdon and Warren County. And then I know we always look at the time, but I'm going to add to Mr. Keefe. I have one, I'd say, potential litigation and one contract issue to add to executive session. With that, kind of a motion to open for public comment.
Make a motion open public comment. Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Suzanne?
Two comments, so that I kind of missed that grant thing that you just said about Asbury Village. Is there a possibility that can be used to help restore the stone bridge on Heritage Park?
It's not dedicated just to because it's a transportation authority grant, so it's just dedicated to sidewalks, pedestrian crossings. Now, I will say for the next budget, I've shared this before, and I've reached out to Mr. Coben, and I'll reach out to him again. If you'd like to help, if not, maybe we'll just do it on our own. That stone bridge actually has its letter of determination from the National Historic Registry, and it's not fully registered, but all you need is this certificate of determination, and you can apply to the New Jersey Historic Trust for capital grants. And last year, the state of New Jersey, it used to be every 5 years. Now they're making those grants available in alternating years, every 2 years. So I plan on actually applying to the Historic Trust, and we need to work with our historic commission with that. But I think that's probably our best option on that bridge.
You may get a little from finance.
And that's strictly, yes.
Island's a big fun part of it.
Yeah, I think it would be really nice to
Sure.
have that, but maybe contact John Jimenez, the Open Space and Environmental Commission,
Okay, yes.
to see if they're.
Yeah, so and those trust grants, which I believe we can use their money, they're 70-30 split typically.
So we're responsible for 30% of the funds and the trust will pay for 70, but we can use funds from other granting agencies. So we may be able to restore that without any taxpayer dollars, which would be great.
That would be wonderful. I mean, I haven't been down there in a while, but I know that it was, oh, but it's a pretty.
It's in rough shape.
Yeah, I'm sure. Whatever happened to that building that you wanted to tarp over?
It's tarped,
So
the house, the leaf farm property, yeah. That's also slated to probably get some, funding from Highlands, at least to stabilize it. It's, like we mentioned a few meetings ago, it's not in bad shape. Structurally, if we were a little surprised, right, Tom?
Yeah.
Somebody apparently did some work on that property. It is tarped. The
But
windows are
it's
boarded up.
questionable how what historic value it really has.
No, there's a couple of trains of thought on that. Yeah, some people are like, no, others are like, well, it was actually a model home, believe it or not, for other homes in town, that are designed after that home. So there's some significance to it. I would just hate to see it come down, but right now I think it's stabilized for the short term.
Okay.
It's all tarped, barely looks like a house at this point. Almost looks like it's wrapped in bubble wrap.
I mean, it is kind of an interesting concept, but when you think of
Yeah.
historic is, oh, something that's a number of years old, but 100 years from now, that will be
Yeah,
a historic concept of what a model home is.
Right, and exactly, and you know, modeling this after what Baskin Ridge did with one of their farm properties, it's called the Farmstead Arts property, and they've had this. I was just upset when the one barn came down, because that was really the attraction with the cupola, and the cupola is sitting there. They did a very good job, actually, saving that. It's, again, in rough shape, but I'd like to maybe, if a artist and woodworker would like to take a look at it, I'd love for that to be restored. And somehow, I guess, displayed on display.
But right now, it's just kind of
It's
sitting there, but it's safe for another.
I just, you know, from my perspective, I'm just, again, we talk about votes in one vote. I don't want to see taxpayer dollars spent on any significant amount. I think, but
I would like to see a volunteer take that project on. It's not huge, and I think if somebody had an interest, I would like to maybe put out for volunteers to work on it.
Is it possible a Boy Scout project?
Well, exactly, it's like an Eagle Scout project or something like that. We also saved, again, the company did a lot of work and saved, there's a lot of wood back there, a lot of the major beams that weren't all that deteriorated from the barn are all back there. It's not safe to go back there and look at them. There's a lot of broken glass, there's a lot of nails back there. So I don't recommend the public be looky-loose, but we did manage to save a good amount of beams.
I think we worked with fairly responsible.
Yes, I think we did.
They did a good job.
My other question is, the Bean property, did that ever get preserved? So I will just say, I was against moving the overlay. I was bullied by somebody that's in the public comment here on the laptop there, by saying that I wasn't for preservation when I didn't want it overlay moved. Come now to hear that it's not even preserved, kind of is really irking me, but that's the way it is. And do you know what's going on with their permits that they are getting from the DEP?
No, we're following up because I can't say I'm not any less irked than you are, but they didn't follow through on the preservation. There's been some other issues that we've been following up with, and they may follow through because they may need to, we'll see what happens.
So you don't know what the
We
DEP
could-
permits are?
Uh,
And one more, so I do apologize if you did discuss my comments in public. Yep, I think the last meeting I went to was in August
Yeah,
for the planning board, and I don't recall my comments being discussed. I know I emailed it again to.
again, I will set the record straight. My memory, I guess, is a little foggy. I could have sworn it was a while ago, but it feels like we haven't had a planning board meeting.
I think it was because actually I wasn't at the meeting when they discussed them, so I think it was the first meeting in September. So I think that was.
I don't think it was October.
Yeah, I think it was the first one. I think it was the first one. in September.
Peter Vouch said we did discuss it.
Okay,
So I do apologize for accusing you of not.
it's fine.
I'll throw in,
Unexpectedly, but I'm serving as the president of Preservation New Jersey, which is the statewide historic advocacy group. And mid-century homes are now things that we look at to preserve. So
I'm getting old.
we look at those.
Oh, man.
It's matter.
Need to explain to me where the zoning line is for that construction allowed on that property we talked about earlier?
It looked like the whole thing was in general commercial.
Where's the line at? I mean, where's the start, where's it end at?
I think at the property line, it looked like, that's why we were talking about putting it up.
Putting it up,
It
yeah.
looked like it was at the end property line where the houses are.
Yes.
Looks like it starts there and runs out to the ROM zone, which is that like 96 acre piece of property in the circle.
In the circle.
Like in Bloomsbury, when you get to Cloverleaf, so you have an RM zone, general, commercial, and then it goes back to.
You're going west.
Yeah, I'm going west, yeah.
Which is why I want to get the zoning map up on the website, because other people have had comments about what some of the zones are, especially along one side.
I'm just trying to figure out because, you know, where I am now. It cost me a lot of money just to move in there to this town. I mean, I had a geologist, you know, a land planner, an engineer, all this stuff. I had to do testing for the geologist. And this guy just moves his equipment in there. I spent thousands of dollars on 3/4 of an acre. And this guy's got 5 acres. He's got a lot more machines than I have sitting down there. And that's why I want to know, what's your definition of construction? So what do you mean?
It's, so.
What kind of construction zone? That's what I'm saying. Hey, an electrician, he's a construction or not? You see what I'm saying?
I think that's all defined. I'd have to look it up, and we asked Mr. Mullen.
He read off a litany of.
Yeah, so the construction company itself, any activities to support it, the office, were all allowed in the GC zone. Which I didn't realize when you and I were speaking, we're asking whether they're pre-existing non-conforming. Mr. Mullen stated to me that it doesn't matter because they're allowed in that zone. And unless they do any significant footprint changes, they wouldn't even need a site plan to do anything significant.
Well, you see them on weekends working out of the building. I see them in there fabricating with torches and welders and all that stuff. I just don't understand. I put a complaint in when the guy was doing the truck work. He's
Brown.
Yeah, Brennan. I put a complaint into your zoning officer then. The guy's working there, you know, 8 hours a day, sometimes 6, 7 days a week. No running water, no bathroom. Right? I put a complaint in, he comes back and says there's nothing wrong with it because he's doing repairs. That was what was in that building, but no running water, no bathroom. Prior to him was Howard Barnes, but he lived on it at that time. And he worked on tractors and stuff out of that building. So, and he lived in that little house. But when the other guy moved in there, I put a complaint in, nothing gets done. The zoning officer like turns his head and says there's nothing wrong with it. He can work out of that building 6, 7 days a week, no running water, no bathroom. And they have a porta potty out back.
And the porta potty may serve, I'm gonna say, our own building here as a porta potty in the DPW and serves as the bathroom.
I just don't understand it. I would like to get the definition in the law.
Like I said, I'm willing to go back, and I'm not people willing, I'm going back to the Board of Health, because it's really not in our purveyance at this point, because we don't have a continuing certificate of occupancy. I don't actually support us ever having one, but if we don't have it, the Board of Health is the biggest issue on that one.
OSHA, I talked to OSHA. OSHA said it's up to the Board of Health,
Yeah.
because if it was an employee complaining, it's a different story.
No, I said, when Board of Health sent this to OSHA, OSHA's, it's not really in their purveyance, it really needs to go to Board of Health. I'm gonna go back to them and ask them, because that's really our only caveat from what I can tell. When I told Mr. Mullen, because you and I have had conversations, I said, Mike, I said, you better make your determination, because whatever it is, I may ask you to take it to court one day.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and so that's where we went. Judy was right there.
That's the same as the building.
Down below. I actually got the Highlands Council DEP enforcers checking that out now because they enlarged the parking area down the bottom. And I mentioned that to you earlier in spring. They brought the mill and made another parking lot.
So they're allowed to expand to 125% of their impervious coverage.
In the Highlands?
Yes. And Millings or Stone is already impervious, so I saw they paved the portion in
Yes.
front of the building.
They paved out. I'll tell you the reason they paved it. I have 89 pictures that property with oil spills all over. And in front of that door was one of the biggest oil spills. You kick the gravel over the oil. I got the pictures yet. Actually, I gotta
I
send
don't
it to
disagree,
you.
but that's up to the property owners, property, you're saying that next to mine that has a 1,400 page DEP report, and that's up to that property owner to accept that liability. I spent over $100,000 doing environmental cleanup on the property I own, so I'm with
And it's
you.
still around a gas tank down there. And the property line still runs through the middle of the house. No. I wouldn't know where the line is in your definition of construction.
We can do that for you. Any other public comment? Any other?
Peter Berger, 134 Blackbrook Road. So as far as parking the trucks on the mountain residential, once you receive a parking ticket, it doesn't matter if you move it. Anyway, I just got a notice from the court. The court date is now November 22nd. I mean, there's no negotiation. You're not supposed to negotiate with them after the complaint is filed, right? You even said that to me.
But see, we don't negotiate, our zoning officer can, we don't do anything, once it's a separation of executive and judicial. But the zoning officer is kind of like a court officer, I guess, I would say, and is allowed to make that concession. It's really up to the prosecutor too, and again, we're looking for compliance, not penalty.
And I'll bring in.
Once you get a parking ticket, it doesn't matter. After you move the vehicle, you still have to pay the parking ticket. Correct?
But it's not the same with the zoning violation as a parking ticket.
Wow, it's pretty blatant though. And the drones will be flying. Another thing about the other property that Manini has that Mr. Matarazzo was talking about, I hope you know that Mr. Manini is storing liquids, God knows what, back behind the hedgerow near the railroad tracks. Keep an eye on it. And,
It's our understanding that he no longer owns that property.
excuse me,
He is not the owner of that property any longer.
he resold it.
Yeah.
He resold that whole.
For $1,080,000. Talk about laundering money.
Was there ever any occupancy permit for that building?
We have no commercial occupancy in town, but
Gotcha. So there's a new owner.
correct.
Wow.
Actually, you sold it twice.
I'll bet. Somebody should test the soil over there.
I got the pictures.
I mean, that's been a toxic,
It's up to DEP and the property owner who accepted the liability. So we can notify DEP,
and it's up to Hunter County to test the soil and stuff
not
like
Hunter
that.
County unless they disturb it, because unless they disturb it, the soils won't get involved. You can report to DEP and we'll follow up, and if you're made a report, I'll follow up with DEP. But it's up to DEP to take action at that point.
Okay, that's a good idea. Thank you.
Again, it's that property owner's liability to take that on. You should have, phase one is the typical, and then whatever else, I don't know what they did, maybe they did, and they were satisfied, we don't know that. Any other public comment? Any public comment from the online? Motion to close public comment?
Make a motion to close public comment.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion to enter executive session to discuss two contract and one litigation issue.
Second.
So we may. So I don't think we need to, I guess, I don't think we'll take any action when they come out.
Do you need the bridge for the executive session?
No, I don't think there'll be any official action taken, but well, I know that we're gonna declare that we know official action taken.
Do you want me to shut it down? Then
We can
keep
shut
it up.
it down.
Okay.